He was a powerful millionaire, yet the one thing money couldn't buy was his daughter's voice. For 6 long years, she never spoke a single word, until that day at the playground. As she sat on the swing, he held the chain with trembling hands, shocked, broken, and desperate. Then a little boy stood beside her, and what happened next shattered the millionaire's world and changed it forever. Bentley Tyler was only 37, a man the city admired, a man people whispered about in awe. They called him the genius of business. They called him the man who turned nothing into an empire. He owned skyscrapers. He owned luxury cars. He owned a mansion so big it looked like a castle. But Bentley's heart was never inside those walls of marble and glass, because his real world was much smaller, much quieter, and it lived inside the fragile heart of a 6-year-old girl. Her name was Sarah Bentley, his only daughter, his only reason for breathing. She had golden hair that caught sunlight like strands of silk. She had big blue eyes that looked like oceans full of secrets. She had a laugh that never left her lips but always reached her eyes. Yet there was one thing missing. One thing that shattered Bentley every single day. Sarah had never spoken. Not one word. Not a daddy. Not a hello. Not even a cry when she was hurt. The world called it selective mutism. Doctors had given Bentley long, complicated explanations. Therapists gave him plans, charts, and hope wrapped in paper. But at night, when Bentley sat alone, he didn't see medical terms. He didn't see charts. He saw his little girl sitting quietly, her lips sealed, her eyes begging to be understood. Every night Bentley prayed. Every night he dreamed of hearing one sound, just one word. Daddy! But the nights passed and silence stayed. Bentley had built towers that touched the sky. Yet he could not climb over the wall between him and Sarah. He remembered the first day she was born. Her tiny hands had wrapped around his finger. Her eyes had opened, wide and curious. And in that moment, he thought life had given him everything. He thought his heart was complete. But then the years rolled by. Birthday candles were lit, but no birthday wish was ever spoken by Sarah. Christmas mornings came with gifts, but never a thank you. Bentley sat beside her bed every night, whispering bedtime stories, waiting for her voice to answer back. Silence always answered instead. The mansion felt empty, not because of its size, but because it lacked the sound every father longed to hear, his daughter's voice. Still, Bentley never stopped trying. He drove her to the best doctors in the country. He sat in waiting rooms pretending to believe in miracle cures. He paid for therapy sessions, hoping one of them would unlock the treasure of her voice. But Sarah remained quiet, her little lips trembling whenever she tried. And yet she was not weak. Her silence had power. When Sarah looked at him, Bentley felt understood. When she smiled, he felt forgiven for his failures. When she touched his face with her tiny hand, it spoke louder than any word. But even with all of this, Bentley's heart ached, because he didn't just want to be understood. He wanted to hear her. He wanted to hear the sweetness of her voice calling him daddy. He wanted that memory carved into his soul forever. The world envied Bentley Tyler. But if they saw him at night, sitting on the floor of his daughter's room, begging God for just one word, they would realize that even the richest man can be the poorest father in silence. Sarah Bentley lived in a silent world, and Bentley Tyler lived in a world of waiting. Both worlds were about to collide with destiny. Neither father nor daughter knew that their silence would one day be broken in the most unexpected place. It was a Saturday afternoon, the kind of afternoon Bentley rarely allowed himself to have. His schedule was always full. Meetings, deals, contracts, phone calls that never stopped ringing. But today, none of that mattered. Today, the world could wait, because Bentley Tyler wanted to give his daughter something far more precious than money, his time. The city was buzzing with life, but Bentley's heart was focused only on the quiet little figure walking beside him. Sarah's tiny hand was wrapped tightly around his much larger one. Her grip was small, yet it carried the weight of his entire world. She never asked him for toys. She never demanded anything. She only walked with him silently, as though she knew that being by his side was enough. Bentley glanced down at her. Her golden hair bounced gently with every step. Her eyes scanned the world with curiosity, always watching, always noticing things he missed. Her lips stayed closed as always, but her silence didn't make her empty. It made her mysterious. It made Bentley want to give her every chance to break free. As they approached the neighborhood playground, Bentley felt something stir inside him. He remembered driving past this place 100 times before. He had seen other fathers pushing their children on swings. He had seen mothers chasing their kids around the slides. He had always wondered if he would ever have that kind of moment with Sarah. Now, as he held her hand at the gate, he realized this was his chance. He bent down slightly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Do you want to try the swing, Princess?" he asked softly. His voice trembled with hope, even though he knew no answer would come. He braced himself for silence, like always. But Sarah didn't pull away. She didn't shake her head. Instead, her little eyes sparkled as she looked at the swings. For Bentley, that silent look was louder than any word. With careful hands, Bentley lifted her into the seat. The chains rattled gently as she settled in, her legs dangling. He gave the first push, slow and cautious, his heart pounding as if the swing carried all of his dreams. The wind caught her hair, lifting it like golden ribbons in the sunlight. Her eyes widened, and then she giggled. It wasn't a sound, but a laugh that lived in her face. Her lips curved upward, her cheeks flushed pink, her eyes shined like stars. Bentley froze behind her. That smile was his miracle. That giggle, silent though it was his treasure. He pushed again, a little higher this time. Sarah gripped the chains, leaning back, her silent laughter growing. Bentley felt his chest ache with happiness. He wanted to capture this moment and lock it away forever. For a man who owned millions, happiness had never been in his bank account. It was right here, in the swing's rhythm, in his daughter's glowing face, in the tiny miracle of her silent joy. Other parents at the playground glanced at them, but Bentley didn't notice. For the first time in years, he wasn't the CEO everyone admired. He wasn't the millionaire who carried the weight of the business world. He was just a father chasing the laughter of a daughter who rarely showed it. His eyes burned with unshed tears. This was what he wanted. Not contracts, not numbers, not applause. Just this, Sarah smiling, Sarah happy, Sarah alive in a world where she could feel free. Bentley leaned closer, his hands still steady on the swing. "Daddy loves you, Princess," he whispered, though he knew she wouldn't reply. Still, he said it. Because one day he prayed she might whisper it back. He didn't know that this playground visit was about to become the turning point of their lives, that today something miraculous would happen. That silence would no longer be the only language Sarah knew. The swing swayed gently. Bentley's hands guided it with steady strength, his heart drinking in every silent giggle from Sarah's lips. For a moment, the world was perfect. For a moment, it was only father and daughter, caught in a bubble of fragile happiness. But life always has a way of breaking silence when least expected. From the corner of his eye, Bentley saw movement. A figure appeared at the edge of the playground. A boy, small, lively, and full of an energy that seemed to bounce with every step he took. He had messy brown hair that refused to stay in place, wide blue eyes that looked curious, bold, and unafraid. He looked like the kind of child who spoke before thinking, laughed before worrying, and lived before hesitating. His name was Kevin, 7 years old. And though Bentley didn't know it yet, this boy was about to change everything. Kevin didn't walk, he ran. Straight toward the swings, straight toward Sarah. Bentley's chest tightened instantly. His protective instincts flared like fire. He had seen children before. Some kind, some cruel. Some who pointed at Sarah's silence. Some who asked questions that cut Bentley deeper than knives. He feared the worst. Would this boy tease her? Would he laugh at her quietness? Would he call her strange, like others had whispered before? Bentley's jaw clenched, ready to step in, ready to protect his daughter with every piece of his soul. But Kevin stopped right in front of the swing, and instead of mocking, he smiled. It wasn't a forced smile. It wasn't the pitying smile adults gave Sarah when they thought she wasn't looking. It was genuine, bright, pure. A child's smile, free from judgment, free from cruelty. "Hi," Kevin said, his voice carrying across the playground like sunshine. His words were simple, but they held no fear, no hesitation. Just kindness, just an invitation. Then came the question that froze Bentley's breath. "Want to play with me?" Bentley's heart stopped. His body went rigid. He knew how Sarah would react. She always looked away. She always lowered her eyes. She always retreated into her silent shell whenever someone new spoke to her. She had never answered a stranger. She had never answered anyone, not even him. Bentley's throat tightened as he watched. The swing slowed. Sarah's little hands gripped the chains tightly. Her eyes, wide and uncertain, locked onto Kevin's face. Bentley prepared for her silence. He prepared for the familiar ache in his chest. He prepared to step in, to gently explain to the boy that Sarah didn't speak. But then, something unimaginable happened. Sarah's lips parted. Her chest rose with a shaky breath. And for the first time in 6 years, Bentley saw sound fight its way to the surface. The moment stretched. The air grew heavy. The world around them seemed to fade into a blur. And Bentley, the millionaire CEO who thought he had seen everything life could offer, realized he was about to witness a miracle. The swing slowed, the chains squeaking softly. Sarah's little shoes brushed against the sand below, toes digging gently as if she needed the ground to steady her. Her eyes, wide and full of fear, fixed on Kevin. Bentley's heart pounded in his chest, each beat louder than the sound of the swing. Something was different. Her lips trembled. Not the way they usually did when she held back tears, but in a way that looked determined, as if her tiny soul was fighting a battle no one else could see. Bentley bent lower, almost holding his breath. His hands shook, but not from fear of losing his fortune or his empire. No. This was the trembling of a father desperate for a miracle. And then it happened. Sarah opened her mouth. Her chest rose. A whisper broke through the silence that had chained her for 6 long years. "Hi!" It was soft. It was tiny. It was fragile. But it was real. Bentley froze. His knees almost buckled beneath him. The playground blurred. The trees, the voices of other children, the world itself. Everything disappeared. All that existed was that single word. His daughter had spoken. She had finally spoken. His breath caught in his throat. Tears burned his eyes, but he didn't dare blink, afraid he would lose the moment. He had begged for this sound. He had prayed for it every night. He had whispered, "Say daddy, princess, please, just once." And though the word wasn't daddy, it was still a miracle. It was a beginning. It was hope dressed as a single syllable. Kevin grinned, wide and innocent, as if he hadn't just broken 6 years of silence. But Sarah nodded. And then her voice, trembling but stronger than before, whispered again. "Okay." Bentley's legs nearly gave way. His heart, so used to breaking, now felt like it might burst open from joy. He wanted to scream, to laugh, to cry all at once. He wanted to pick her up, spin her around, and tell the world, "She spoke! My daughter spoke!" But he didn't. He stood frozen, tears sliding down his face, because he knew this wasn't about him. This was about her. This was about the moment Sarah had chosen to step out of her silence. She had not spoken to doctors. She had not spoken to teachers. She had not spoken to him, her father, who loved her more than life itself. But to this boy, this messy-haired 7-year-old stranger with a fearless smile, she had given her first word. And Bentley realized something painful and beautiful at the same time. Sarah had not been waiting for pressure. She had not been waiting for therapy. She had been waiting for connection. For someone who treated her not as a fragile child, not as a patient, not as a puzzle to be solved, but simply as a friend. Bentley's tears fell freely now, dripping onto his hands as he clutched the swing chain for support. He felt his heart shatter and heal all in the same breath. He had longed to hear her voice for so many years, and though the word wasn't meant for him, he cherished it as if it were, because it meant she could. It meant she would. It meant there was hope. Bentley watched as Sarah slid off the swing and followed Kevin toward the sandbox. Her steps were hesitant, but her little face glowed with something he hadn't seen before: confidence. And in that fragile moment, Bentley Tyler, the Millionaire CEO, realized he had just witnessed the most priceless moment of his entire life. Bentley stood frozen at the edge of the playground. His eyes followed every tiny movement of his daughter. He could hardly breathe. His little Sarah, the girl who hadn't spoken a single word since the day she was born, was speaking now. Not to him. Not to the man who would give away all his fortune just to hear her voice, but to a little boy she had just met. Kevin's messy brown hair bounced as he led her to the sandbox. Sarah followed him without hesitation, her small hands clutching the red bucket Kevin offered. For 6 years, Bentley had tried everything: therapists, specialists, expensive programs. Yet in less than 6 minutes, this boy had done what the world's best doctors could not. The sight cut into Bentley's heart like a blade. Why him? Why not me? Why couldn't she trust her own father with her voice? But then, Sarah's laughter filled the air. It wasn't silent this time. It wasn't trapped behind closed lips. It was soft, shaky, fragile, but it was sound. Bentley felt his knees weaken. That laugh was the music he had been waiting his entire life to hear. He pressed a trembling hand to his chest, as if to hold his breaking heart together. Kevin's voice rang out joyfully. "You can build the castle, I'll make the tower." Sarah nodded quickly, her golden hair bouncing as she began patting sand into her bucket. "Okay," she whispered, her voice so faint Bentley almost thought he imagined it. But then she giggled again, and the truth sank in. She wasn't silent anymore. Bentley wanted to cry out in joy. He wanted to run forward, kneel in the sand, and thank Kevin with every ounce of his soul. But he couldn't move, because even as joy flooded his heart, pain gnawed at the edges. Why couldn't she do this with him? Why couldn't she say Daddy? Why did a stranger, a child, unlock the miracle he had been begging for? Bentley's throat tightened. His vision blurred with tears. The questions stabbed at him one after another like cruel reminders of his helplessness. But just when his pain threatened to swallow him, Kevin's voice carried across the sandbox. "Don't be scared," Kevin said gently, handing Sarah another shovel. "You don't need to hide, I'll be your friend." Bentley's breath caught. Those words, so simple, so innocent, were the key. Sarah hadn't spoken because she was waiting for brilliance. She wasn't waiting for doctors with polished degrees. She wasn't waiting for a millionaire father who wanted to fix everything with money. She had been waiting for kindness, for someone who looked at her and didn't see silence, for someone who saw her as a child, not as a problem, for someone who made her feel safe enough to speak. Bentley finally understood. It wasn't about him. It wasn't about his failures. It was about Sarah. She had needed something pure, something simple, something only a child's heart could give. Bentley lowered himself onto a nearby bench, his hands covering his face. Tears slid freely down his cheeks, not just of sorrow but of gratitude. Because even though it hurt that Sarah's first words weren't for him, he was grateful she had spoken at all. And as he watched her laugh, really laugh, for the first time in her life, Bentley's broken heart began to heal. Piece by piece, smile by smile, word by word. For 6 years, he had believed money could solve everything. But in that moment, Bentley Tyler, the Millionaire CEO, realized the greatest miracles are born not from wealth, but from love. The golden light of evening wrapped the playground in warmth as Sarah ran back to Bentley. Her tiny hand clutched his sleeve, and for the first time, her lips trembled, not with silence, but with courage. Her voice, soft as a whisper, yet strong enough to break years of silence, escaped. "Daddy." The word pierced Bentley's soul like a miracle. His knees buckled, and he dropped down, pulling Sarah into his arms. He held her as though the world itself had stopped moving. His sobs echoed, heavy but filled with joy, while tears poured down his face. He had dreamed, prayed, and begged for this moment, and now it was here. Kevin stood only a few feet away, his small smile uncertain. He didn't know he had just rewritten the story of their lives. Bentley opened his arms wider, drawing Kevin into the embrace, too. The sight of the two children, one who had been silenced by fear and another who carried the power of kindness, broke the walls inside him. In that instant, Bentley realized the truth that shook him to the core. Money couldn't fix everything. Expensive doctors, specialists, and elite schools hadn't given Sarah her voice. What healed her heart was the simple compassion of a child who treated her like she belonged. From that day on, Bentley made sure Sarah and Kevin shared more moments together. Their laughter grew louder, their games wilder, and Sarah's words, once locked away, slowly blossomed into full sentences. The lesson was clear for anyone who saw it. A society obsessed with power and wealth often forgets the simplest cure: love, acceptance, and kindness. And in the soft evening glow, Bentley promised himself that no matter how rich he would never again overlook the greatest treasure of all, human compassion.